Hello, hello. If you are looking for unique strategies to live a more creative and fulfilling life, then you are in the right place. I am so glad that you are here. I am Kate Volman, and I am starting this live series after my book, after the success. And I've just gotten some really great feedback on my book, Do What You Love, which you can also see right here. But this book, in the book, Do What You Love, A Guide to Living Your Creative Life, I share the 7 myths stopping people from pursuing their dreams, their passion projects, their creative pursuits. And that's what I talk about in the book. And so every week, I want to bring you conversations with people that are living their creative life, that are doing what they know is meant for them. Now, your creative pursuits are those soulful activities that bring joy to your life, right? Like they're different for different people. So for you, it might be singing, dancing, photography. It could be gardening, cooking, pottery, art, poetry. And for other people, it might be a little bit more relevant to a business that they're in. Maybe you want to start a podcast or write a book or do some YouTube videos and build a channel, whatever that looks like. Your creative pursuits are inside of you for a reason. They are. And so often we stop ourselves because of things like perfectionism or it has to, or we feel like we're not enough just yet, or we feel like, oh, inspiration needs to strike and we talk, or we don't have enough time. And so those are some of the myths that I talk about in the book. And so I love and I'm so inspired by people who are out there living their creative life. Now, what does that mean, living your creative life? It means different things to different people. To me, when I think about living a creative life, it means exploring what you find interesting. It means being courageous enough to write down your dreams and go after them, no matter how crazy they might seem. Because by going after your dreams, you're allowing yourself to change. You're allowing yourself to grow. They change us. They help us grow. They open our eyes to new paths that we might not have otherwise discovered if we don't go after those dreams. And so when when talking about the creative process, because I think it's such an interesting topic. I love learning from other creators and authors and podcasters or anyone that's creating and putting art or whatever their art is out into the world. It's so interesting to talk to them because there are always things that show up that hinder us from kind of moving forward. And what's so funny was today I had scheduled, so this is something that I really wanted to start doing, and I didn't allow myself to overthink it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this live. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be bringing guests on for you every single week. And so unfortunately, my incredible guest had a family emergency and couldn't make it. And this is already live. So I could have just decided, hey, I'm not going to do it. I'll postpone. But instead, I decided, hey, on this first episode, I'm going to share something with you all that hopefully will push you forward in living your creative life and give you some simple strategies, one takeaway at least every single time we do this. So that is something else that's really intentional about doing this live, is that I want to make sure that every single time that you join us, you are learning something, you are being pushed into action every time you jump on and are part of these conversations. So today we're going to talk about how to create your MVC, your minimum viable creation. Now, why is this important? This is important because think about, in business, we have an MVP, right? We've heard minimum viable product. What does your minimum viable product mean? Your minimum viable product is it basically has just enough features to attract the early adopters to use it, right? Like just enough features to get people interested. So think about Facebook as a great example. When Zuckerberg first started it, it was simply a way that people can start connecting. It was in a college. And so it was just kind of this opportunity for people to connect. And obviously today it is massive and taking over the world. And there's all these different features and things that we get to use. But when it started, it was that minimum viable product that we get to put out. And this is the same way that we can look at our creative pursuits. So think about, for you, is it a blog? Do you want to write a book? Is it a podcast? Is it what is something that you have been talking about doing that would really tap into your creativity and you just haven't started? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today is creating your minimum viable creation and easily to get us out of our head and into some action. So here, I'm going to share the 3 C's to help you create your MVC, your minimum viable creation. And I talk about the MVC in my book, Do What You Love. So the first one is clarity. Clarity. Write down your dream. We have to be clear on what it is that we are trying to do. So I had a conversation with a woman the other day. She's starting to build this coaching business, which is beautiful, amazing, wonderful. And I started asking her all these questions like, where do you see this business? Where do you want it to go? Like, where do you see it in the future? And then I started asking her, what does it look like? What are you offering? What is your offering? Who are you working with? What do your days look like? I started asking her all these questions and she really wasn't sure. She just knew, I want to start this business. Okay, that's a great start, but we've then got to get some clarity around why do we want to do this? And then what does it look like? We've got to have that end in mind. And the more that we can paint that vision, the more excited we're going to get about actually creating it. So that's the first thing is to write it down. What is that creative pursuit for you that you've been talking about for far too long and you need to just put it down on paper so you can get started? So that's the first C in the 4 C's. Number 2 is to create a roadmap to achieve it, right? We have our dream. Now we get to create the roadmap to achieve it. Now, here is where we have a little fork in the road. So when we create that roadmap, we can do one of 2 things. One, we can guess how to get there, or we can, 2, get help. We can ask for help from someone that has already done the thing that we want to do. This is where coaching comes into play. When we decide on a specific dream that we want to go after, we have those 2 paths. We can try to do it and make some of the mistakes that other people have already made, or we can get some coaching and reach out to people that have already done the work. And what's beautiful is that it doesn't have to, some people think, oh, I don't have the money to do all this stuff. But it doesn't actually have to cost anything because there are so many free resources. There are so many resources online. We can go on YouTube. We can ask our friends. We can study other people that have done the work. And so we've got to make that decision. Once we have the dream, what are we really committed to doing to get there? So for example, when I started writing the book, I've had a dream of writing a book for far too long. It was over a decade on my dream list of writing this book. And finally I decided, okay, I have to get really serious. And I could have done it on my own because why not? I can probably piece it together, or I can hire somebody to help me along the way. So I hired a coach to help me get through the publishing process. What does that look like? I mean, I didn't know anything about really what it would take to write a book. And now, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. And not only did I hire someone to help me along the process to help me get better and help me write the best book I could possibly write, because the coach pushed me and really encouraged me in a lot of different ways. And so I know that I was able to create the best product because I had help and support. But I also learned so much about the world of publishing and what that looks like, the world of editing, the world of, it just opened my eyes to so many different things. And that was because I hired somebody to help me do it. And so what does that look like in your world? There are so many incredible courses, videos, places that we can go to get the support that we need in order to accomplish the things that we say we want to accomplish, right? Like we've got to invest in ourselves. Now, I thought about this really great quote that I read from Haemin Sunim. Haemin Sunim, he said, the most dangerous people are those who have passion but lack wisdom. Let me say it again. The most dangerous people are those who have passion but lack wisdom. We can all be super passionate about our creative pursuits. Oh, yes, we want to start this blog and write this book and learn to dance and do all the things. But if we lack wisdom, or because I like to add on to this quote, it's like we have passion but lack wisdom. We have passion but lack consistency. We have passion but lack clarity, passion but lack focus, passion but lack confidence. Like we have to have all of these things. Like passion isn't enough. We've got to actually do the work that we know that we need to do. And what's so great is that there are all these people that have done the things that we say we want to do. And so we get to be our own coach. And if your friend, if someone in your life was going to come to you and say, "Hey, I really want to pursue this project. What do you think I should do?" How would you advise them? What would you recommend for them? And most likely you would recommend invest in yourself. Invest in a coach, invest in a program, go on YouTube, find whatever resources you need to find in order to do the work and get to that dream, to achieve the things you say you want to achieve. And so there we have clarity is number 1. Number 2, create a roadmap to achieve it. And number 3, consistency. Consistency. Oh, we all love consistency is key, right? We actually have to be consistent in doing the work. So I'll go back to the example of writing the book. I didn't always feel like sitting down and writing, but I knew that I had to. Otherwise, it wouldn't get done. And so I had to create this habit of this writing habit that was going to help me stay consistent every single day in order to get the words out on the page that I needed to get out in order to write and finish the book. And this is really important. One of the things that I've learned over the past few years, because I have done a lot of studying and learning from other authors and writers. In fact, I have just become obsessed with learning more and more about the creative process because I think it's so fascinating. But all the writers that I have studied, they all say the same thing. They don't always feel like writing, but they have a writing habit and a writing practice that makes them sit down and write every single day. Like, even when they don't feel like it, you still get behind your computer and write. You still get the notepad out and write, whatever that looks like for you. So we've got to put those things in place in order to be consistent. We can make excuses or we can show up and do the work anyway. It's obviously easier to make an excuse. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into the next day and then the next day. And all of a sudden we realize, oh my gosh, we didn't do anything for the last 3 weeks. We've got to put plans in place in order to be consistent, whatever that looks like. And this goes back to habits. And one of the best books that you can read on habits is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a bestseller for a reason because he practically shows us how to do habit stacking and how to really create practices in our lives easily, a lot more easily, especially if we aren't doing the things that we say that we want to do. All right, so clarity, create a roadmap, consistency. We've got to stay consistent. And number 4 is confidence. Confidence. I work with so many incredible people that have beautiful dreams, that want to build something wonderful, that have an amazing creative pursuit that they've been talking about for years, whatever that is for them. And confidence stops us. Confidence stops us from moving forward because we feel like we aren't at a certain level. We feel like we have to have this level of courage that we might not have, but you get the courage when you do the work, when you take the next steps, when you are consistent in what you say that you want to achieve. So we've got to develop strategies to avoid comparison, to avoid overthink, because these are 2 things that hinder our confidence, especially the comparison. And that can be challenging because we have to have discipline and self-awareness to recognize when something is hindering our performance or preventing us from doing what we love. We've got to have that self-awareness. We need to recognize, hey, when I spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes on social media, I don't feel so great after. I don't become inspired or empowered or encouraged. I start comparing myself to someone else's ending or much further along than my beginning. And yet here we are still scrolling on social media. So we have to have the self-awareness to recognize what is good for us, and then the discipline to stop doing the thing that, quite honestly, we've become addicted to, because we've all in some way have some type of addiction to something, and social media is definitely on the top of many people's lists. And so we've got to figure out a way to let go of what no longer serves us. We have to figure out a way to what would better serve me? In fact, I did a whole video here on this channel around that question of asking ourselves, what would better serve me? So instead of asking the question, does this serve me? If we're asking that, it probably doesn't. But what would better serve me? What would better serve you is to take the next step. It would be to take the course or learn what you need to learn in order to take that next step. Or maybe you've already done the things, you've already have the knowledge, you just haven't sat down and written. You haven't sat down and recorded the episode. You haven't pressed the button to get it out and put it out into the world. Whatever video that you might have created. Oh, I often wonder how many people have books or videos or articles or something that they've created that they just are too fearful to share in the world. Have that courage, have that confidence in your work, believe in your work enough that it doesn't even matter what the haters say, that you just know that it is meant to find whoever it is meant to find to help support them, to help other people grow. Because if it was important to you, it's important to somebody else too. It's going to touch somebody else's heart in a way that you probably don't even recognize or realize. So your work matters, and we have to have the confidence in our work and believe that our work matters. All right, so those are the 4 C's: clarity, create a roadmap, consistency, and confidence. And today we're going to walk away with, before we get off this call, we're going to walk away with an inspired action. So in my book, I share at the end of each chapter these inspired actions because I was very intentional. I did not want to write a book that people just read and thought, oh, this is great. No, I wanted people to take action. I wanted people to leave with not only the feeling empowered, but some type of tool and something that would push them to take that next step. And so the inspired action today is, they're always simple. We have to make them simple. If they're not simple, you're not going to do it. I know that. So the simple inspired action today is to implement one of the 4 C's. One of these 4 C's you're going to implement. Now that's dependent on where you are in your journey. If you have just been kind of dabbling, thinking about, do I want to write a book? Do I want to start a podcast or a YouTube channel? Whatever that is. Make a decision, write it down. Clarity, get crystal clear on what it is that you want to do. So you're going to do that. Maybe you already have that. Maybe you already put stuff out. You're already kind of working on your creative pursuit, but are you consistent? Are you being consistent? So your inspired action would be to create that consistency plan. Am I posting once a week? Am I writing every day? What does that look like? When I wrote the book, I decided my writing habit was going to be, I was going to sit down. I was going to write at least 250 words every single day. Now, most days when I sat down and wrote, I wrote more than 250 words, but there were definitely days that I did not feel like writing so much so that after 250, I was like, okay, good, I'm getting up, I'm leaving. But it was consistency, knowing that I was going to show up and do it. I wasn't going to say, hey, I'll do it tomorrow, because tomorrow turns into the next day and the next day and the next day. So we've got to remain consistent. So implement one of the 4 C's and let me know in the comments what that one thing is that you're going to take action on today. All right. Thank you so much for being part of this very first live of Do What You Love. Like I said, we are going to be having conversations with interesting people that are living their creative life. And the whole idea around it is to really empower and encourage you to not only live a more fulfilling life, but really to understand what that means to you. What does a creative life mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? So that you can then start to create what that life is. Because I truly believe that your life is probably a lot better than you might think it is. And that goes back to the comparison. Or maybe the life that you really want is much closer and attainable than you think. But the moment that we get really clear on what it is that we want to see and do and be and create, we can then take the steps that we need in order to achieve those things in our life. You are awesome. If you are not yet subscribed to my channel, I invite you to subscribe. Would love for you to stay connected with me. And I create lots of content to help you build a career and life you love. So thank you again for being here. Until next time, go create something.